Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing dumper thoughts at the end of summer. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing dumper thoughts at the end of summer. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will likely wonder what your ex is thinking. In today's podcast, I'm going to be discussing 3 likely thoughts that your ex will have at the end of summer. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is what's next. So when we consider the end of summer, of course, this is going to mean different things to different people, but what we can say for certain is that generally speaking, the summer provides more opportunities for people regarding what they can do within their life. Summer ordinarily means better weather. Better weather generally means more activities, more events, more things to do. So when you're trying to busy yourself, when you're trying to live your life in a new direction, summer is often a fantastic period of the year for you to be in this position. So when we consider your ex-dumper, that is of course what exactly they've been doing. Now when you and your ex were in a loving relationship, you were living a life together. This was something that you would have shared. This is something that you would have probably suggested something that they could do with you, and they would suggest something that you could do with them. But when the breakup took place, when your ex decided that they wanted to go down their own path, this is when they were going to be focusing on their own journey. And they were probably doing things that were not ordinarily what you and your ex used to do. They would have likely decided to go on their own path. So, as I've just been saying, when we connect this to summer often provides more opportunities for what we can do, more things to see, more things to experience, more places to go. But when we get to the end of summer, a natural thought that a dumper will likely have is what's next, what's around the corner. Now, depending on where your ex-dumper lives around the world, will dictate, of course, what is likely to be open to them as something to concentrate on and to do. But I would suggest that the events, the experiences, especially the outdoor activities, are likely over the coming months as we move from summer into the winter months, through fall, through autumn. This is likely to slow down and minimize the opportunities for what anybody could do, especially somebody who's probably just on their own path fairly recently, because they are your dumper, they've ended a relationship, they're doing their own thing, they're looking for things to do, they're looking for things to fill their time. You are no longer in their life. They are focusing on what to do. So what's next is something that's going to be on a dumper's mind. What can I do? What's the situation? What's on the horizon? Now, some cultures, some countries might have lots of things going on as we move into autumn, into fall, but some places are going to have a lot less going on. So the question on your mind, if you are a dumper, is how am I going to fill all of this time that I now have? When you and your former partner were together, you would have spent a lot of time communicating with one another. All the things you did as a couple are now things that they're not going to be able to do. So even if you're worried that your ex-dumper might be living their life to the full, even if that has actually happened, well, this is coming to an end in regards to the opportunities of what they can do. That is why a dumper is going to be thinking, what's next? What can I do to fill this time? Because when you have time on your hands, this is when you can slip into a realization that your life might not be going in the direction that you actually thought. Somebody ends a relationship because they did not feel fulfilled. They did not feel satisfied. They did not believe the relationship was working for them. They've taken a chance on doing something new. And maybe during the summer months, they found lots of things to occupy their mind. They didn't really have to think about the relationship too deeply. They didn't have to think about the breakup. They didn't have to think necessarily even about yourself as much as if they didn't have as much going on. Now, it doesn't mean that they didn't think of you, but if they're occupied, they're not going to be thinking of you as much. But as we move into autumn, into fall, this, as I've said, is likely to minimise with the amount of things that they can occupy their mind with. Now, if you're listening to this podcast and you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're probably thinking, well, this isn't the end of summer, and we're not moving into autumn or to fall because we're in the Southern Hemisphere. Well, I appreciate that when I'm speaking to you right now, it's not relevant this second, but obviously in a few months' time, when we move around the year, you will be in the same situation. So if you're thinking, well, I'm not actually experiencing this right now, you will be in a number of months down the line. So Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, this is something that all dumpers and all dumpees are going to have to experience. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about dumper thoughts at the end of summer. And point number 2 is, what's my dumpee doing? So as I've been saying in point number 1, we're moving into a period of time where there's generally less to occupy our mind. There's generally less events, generally less parties, generally less experiences to move into. And when we have a mind that isn't occupied, we are going to be thinking more about the things that we've been able to block out of our mind more so during the summer months. And one of those important thoughts that a dumper will have once they have more time on their hands is to consider, what's my dumpee doing? What are they doing? What have they been doing during the summer? Maybe the dumper would have thought about the dumpee, depending on exactly when the breakup took place. They may have thought of their dumpee every few days, maybe even every day, depending on how recently the breakup actually was. But they could have distracted themselves by going out and doing something. It's a lot easier to do so when there are the things that summer generally provides. But when those things are no longer here, the dumper is going to be thinking, what's my dumpee doing? What have they done? What are they doing now? And this is where, if you're a dumpee, you can really capitalise on this. If you want to try to get your ex back, this is a moment for you to be really focusing on showcasing your best self. And I wouldn't just say you start doing this after we move from summer into autumn into fall. I would say you should be doing this throughout. And if and when your expert dumper wants to speculate and have a look about what you've actually been doing, they will see quite clearly on social media, for instance, what it is you have been doing. Post about you living your life to the full. This is going to help you. Maybe your expert dumper doesn't look at this during the summer, but maybe afterwards they start to have a look. Maybe you're not connected on social media, but you have friends of friends, and your expert dumper will ask about you to them. Maybe somebody passes the information on to them. So just because you might not be connected on social media with your ex, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be using this to your advantage. Post positive things. Talk about your life in a way which is ambitious, which is pushing forward, which is something where if anybody was to read it or to see it, they would believe and understand that you're living your life to the full, you're improving, you're growing as a person, you are a version 2.0 of yourself. And it's so important that you do that, because you must remember as a dumpee that unfortunately the person that your ex dumped, that person, that version of yourself, was no longer a good fit for your ex. If you want to try to get them back, you need to improve, you need to grow. I'm not just saying do it for them. You should be doing it for you. But if you want to get them back, you've got to understand that standing still is not an option. Live your life, improve, grow, have fun, make new connections, post online, live your life in a way where other people just know from your aura about what you're doing and how you're living. And one way or another, it will likely get back to your ex if and when they think about you, they ask about you, they wonder about you. This is when they can realise and recognise that you are a better person than the person that they ended a relationship with. That you are a better person than the person that they felt no longer fitted within their life. Okay, you need to be doing this to increase your chance of getting your ex back. Another thing you can do to increase that chance is to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast, about dumper thoughts at the end of summer. And point number 3 is, have I made the right choice? So if you want to try to get your ex back from a position of a dumpee, this is the one that you want to hear. You want your ex-dumper to get to a stage of where they reconsider their thoughts. And this is how it all links in. When we consider the dumper thoughts at the end of summer, they're wondering what's next. They don't know what to occupy their mind with. They'll start wondering about you, the dumpee. They then find out that you've been living your life to the full, and it seems, rightly or wrongly, true or false, that you are living a fantastic existence. Even if you don't really believe that you are, if you're posting positivity, ambition, confidence, it will come across that way. I'm not saying lie, but I'm just saying post your best self. So if you get yourself into that position where your ex-dumper is wondering about you, they're finding out about you, they're beginning to miss you, this is when they will actually ask themselves, have I made the right choice? Because although the dumper has been filling their time during the summer, they're very unlikely to have improved. Very few dumpers go through the self-improvement that dumpees go through. And this is somewhat connected to the fact that as human beings, we're unlikely to take action unless there is a pain point. And the pain point for the dumpee is very easy to understand. You know, you're listening to this right now. You wouldn't be listening to a podcast, I doubt, at this point in your life, unless you wanted to get out of a jam. You know, you're feeling really, really uncomfortable right now. You're not feeling your best. And that's putting it mildly. That is why you're taking action. That is why you're going through self-improvement. Well, as human beings, we find it much tougher to push forward when we don't have that pain point. And a dumper who ends a relationship does not have the same pain point. Maybe they feel some level of pain, some level of anguish, but it's not the same. You know, this was their choice, their ultimate decision to end the relationship, to gamble on moving forward on a path that they thought would bring them greater happiness. So they've not gone through the improvement. They filled their life with sticking plasters, plastering over the gaps of time in their life. And if they haven't met the next love of their life, which let me tell you, is very, very unlikely that they will, certainly within the first year or so, it's very hard to find a new long-term connection. So I think that's very unlikely that they would have done. They're going to come through the end of summer. Life isn't going to seem as exciting. Life isn't going to seem as it has so much on offer. They've got less to do. They're wondering about what to do. They're thinking what's next. They're thinking of you. They're looking into what you are doing. They find out through friends of friends. They find out through social media. You're doing your thing. You look better than before. You seem to be living your life to the max. You have clearly grown as a person. They realize and recognize that they haven't. They know the truth. They know they haven't improved. They know they've just spent their time having a laugh, but not actually growing. They see, feel and hear, but it seems that you've got your life together, whereas they haven't. This is when we're going to start wondering, have I made the right choice? Okay, my ex-dumpee seems like they're living their life to the full, and I'm now bored, sitting at home alone with nothing else in my calendar because summer's over. You know, no more parties, no more barbecues, no more events. It's just not what it was. Yes, of course, there's still a few things going on in autumn, moving into fall, and as we move towards the winter, there are, of course, events at the end of the year. But the end of summer can be a bit of a shell shock when we move from that period of time where it seems light and bright until we go to sleep, and changing and evolving to a time where it gets darker, earlier and earlier and earlier. It can feel quite depressing. And you as a dumpee are probably also struggling through that, but you found the motivation because you've got that pain point to push forward, to grow, and to do everything else I've been saying. The dumper hasn't gone through this. They don't have that same pain point. They don't have the encouragement. They don't have the motivation. They're very unlikely to have grown or improved or lived their life to the full in a way which is meaningful. Yes, they've had a laugh. Yes, they've played games. Yes, they've done this. Yes, they've gone to that party. But it's not something which they can think about as life-changing. Whereas what you're doing as a dumpee is life-changing. You're becoming a version 2.0 of yourself. That is very attractive. And your ex-dumper will actually start to wonder, have I made the right choice? Because ever since I've left my dumpee, they look amazing and I feel like I've got nothing. That type of power shift is what takes place, and the move from summer into autumn and fall can really be a catalyst for a dumper to start regretting their decision. If you want to try to get your ex back from a position of a dumpee, you need your ex-dumper to regret the decision. And this can be really helped and boosted by the move through summer out of the other side and them feeling that they are missing out on whatever it is that you bring to the world right now, because clearly you look great, you look like you've got your life together. They don't feel they have. So they feel that they are missing out. They feel that you've improved since they've gone, and maybe they were holding you back, when of course the actual situation was unfortunately due to the pain point that you reached where you decided to push forward. This is how the end of summer can help you get your ex back. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.